The Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. That's because, unfortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien.
Trump's press secretary and professional liar, Karoline Leavitt, is giving a masterclass in gaslighting the American public, lying through her teeth, and smearing Kilmar Abrego Garcia to justify the cruelty he's currently being subjected to.
I saw the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I just landed at the airport in San Salvador a little while ago. I'm now en route into the city, looking forward to meeting with the team from the American Embassy. The goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen is taking matters into his own hands, like the rest of our elected officials should be, by sharing his intentions to go to El Salvador to meet Kilmar Abrego Garcia in person, to check on his condition and argue for his release back to the United States after Salvadorian President Bukele snubbed Van Hollen during his recent trip to D.C. Which brings us back to Karoline Leavitt and the lies the Trump administration has been spreading.
Chris Van Hollen, who was Rachel Morin's senator, basically threatening to fly to El Salvador to press for the release of someone who was in America illegally. And not as much sort of from him about Rachel Morin's horrific murder and the verdict that was, I think, rightly reached yesterday. What does the administration think about the priorities we're seeing from Senate Democrats in terms of illegal immigrants instead of the work that agencies like ICE and DHS are doing with the Trump administration?
It's mind-boggling, the priorities of the modern-day Democrat Party. I think it's atrocious that you have Democrats in Congress on Capitol Hill who swear an oath to protect their constituents and to serve them in Washington, D.C., spending more time defending illegal immigrant gang members than their own constituents and law-abiding American citizens like Rachel Morin. And I saw the president personally on the campaign trail, and I continue to see him in his role as president of the United States, put American families first, reach out to the victims, the families of victims at the hands of illegal immigrant crime. And frankly, the actions and the words of the Democrat Party prove they could not care less about the American public. And maybe if they did, they'd see a bit higher approval ratings right now.
This is just such a nasty, deliberate, and false characterization of Chris Van Hollen and his Democrat colleagues, because they're the ones who are actually trying to put Americans first in this country, not Trump and his regime. That man is trying to gut every federal program known to mankind. That man is trying to hurt the average man and average woman. That man does not care, and the administration, the regime does not care about the American people. They don't put the American people first. And they talk about, oh yeah, Van Hollen and the Democrats are, they're trying to prioritize gang members while we want to put Americans first. You're not fooling us. You may be fooling the people who are ignorant and they're drinking, they're part of the cult, but you're not fooling the rest of us, okay? And the reason why she responded to that softball setup question in that way is to, again, paint the picture that Democrats are anti-American, and that Republicans, but the Trump administration specifically, they are for the American people first and foremost, even though we know that's just a flat out lie.
Deporting American citizens to Central American prisons. Is it legal, or do you need to change the law to do it?
Well, it's another question that the president has raised. It's a legal question that the president is looking into. And he talked about this yesterday when with his meeting with President Bukele in the Oval Office. He would only consider this, if legal, for Americans who are the most violent, egregious, repeat offenders of crime, who nobody in this room wants living in their communities.
I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay? If it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in.
It is so absurd to even suggest that American citizens, violent criminals or not, should be sent to a foreign concentration camp. That is incredibly dangerous for all of us. Because if you thought it was just, undocumented immigrants, non-citizens, right, who come into this country who are at risk, you've been mistaken. And then you're putting the idea out there that American citizens could be tortured, brutalized for basically anything, right? That is a dangerous precedent that we are setting. Just even suggesting that is unbelievable.
Could you just explain to us a little bit more about the legal basis on which you may be able to send US citizens to prison there? I know you said that President Trump is looking at it, but can you explain to us a little bit more about how that might be possible?
We're looking at it, and when I have more for you to share, I certainly will.
Again, we shouldn't even be entertaining the notion of having to, quote, look into the laws already on the books that the administration can use to justify sending American citizens to a foreign prison. But we're long past that, unfortunately.
I also want to thank your press office for releasing that information that you cited up there regarding the ICE arrests over the last couple of days. And I have them right here, but what I might ask is, why not release the same information for those who were deported to El Salvador?
Well, first of all, the information was released by the Department of Homeland Security. The individuals on the flights to El Salvador are foreign terrorists, and those are counterterrorism operations. They are much different than the arrests and final order of removals that you see on a day-to-day basis that law enforcement agents are conducting around the country.
That information was not, to that detail, was not released by DHS, though.
I just told you the reason. It was a counterterrorism operation, a deportation of foreign terrorists, not illegal criminals who have been convicted of heinous crimes living in our American communities. It's two different things. Foreign terrorist, illegal immigrant criminal, two different things, two different definitions. You should look them up.
How concerned is the president that a federal judge could hold a Trump administration official in contempt of court for defying deportation orders?
We are complying with all court orders. So I see what you're trying to do there with that question, but we're very confident that every action taken by this administration is within the confines of the law, and we continue to comply with the court's orders. And you have seen that, and the president made that clear yesterday in the Oval Office with President Bukele.
Administration officials made it very clear that El Salvador is responsible for Mr. Abrego Garcia, yet El Salvador's president said we're not going to do anything with him. So my question is, who is responsible for this man and where he's going to end up?
Well, no. First of all, President Bukele said that he is not going to smuggle a foreign terrorist back into the United States of America, as many in this room in the Democrat Party seemingly want him to do. Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result. There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland, because he is a foreign terrorist and a MS-13 gang member. Not only have we confirmed that, President Bukele yesterday in the Oval Office confirmed that as well. So he went back to his home country where he will face consequences for his gang affiliation and his engagement in human trafficking. I'm not sure what is so difficult about this for everyone in the media to understand, and it's appalling, truly appalling, that there has been so much time covering this alleged human trafficker and this gang member, MS-13 gang member. It's truly striking to me.
Garcia's deportation, people, is a test case for the Trump regime to see just how far they can push the envelope before some serious substantive pushback happens, okay? And let me remind you that this affects all of us in the country. If you think you're safe just because you're an American citizen, you're fooling yourself. Because the regime, the Trump regime, does not operate with logic. They do not operate with compassion. They do not operate with humanity and empathy. They are out for vengeance, okay? They are out for making an example out of people who question them, who protest against their policies. So we have to be on edge. We have to be ready for whatever. And I really hope that Garcia will be returned to the country. But if he isn't, that means, as you know, the Supreme Court ruling, a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling that said the Trump administration has to facilitate a return for Garcia back to the States, it's meaningless. It's like, oh yeah, I don't care about a court order. I don't care about a court ruling. We're just going to do whatever we want. I'm not abiding by that, which is very ironic and, well, hypocritical, because they try to position themselves as the party and the regime of, law and order, right? It's about law and order, but you don't respect the laws. Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.